So James McLean, these questions are those that you have posed to me in email. I'm about to attempt to answer each one. The first question is, what mistake in your relationship have you learned from the most and hope to never repeat? The answer to that question is somewhat complex, as they all are. But one, I'm a very dominant personality. It's not that I command or I'm not commandeering, but my personality presence is rather strong and can be overbearing at times. This is one of the more trivial lessons I've learned that I hope to always keep in mind as I relate to more and more people up ahead. Another lesson that I've learned that I hope to never repeat again is that I or anyone cannot define how my spouse should be. Only they can define that. You can only be a mirror to them to show them how they are. You cannot label that. You cannot call that good or bad. That is up to them. Through living with my spouse, I've learned a lot about me, and she has learned a lot about her. This is a natural progression. But for me to define how she should be, or the other way around, it simply cannot lead to good things. And still another mistake that I may consider that I hope to never repeat again is that we all must be allowed to make our own mistakes, including our spouses. We learn through our mistakes, and to prevent ourselves from making mistakes is to compromise our own learning. And we must always be in a position where we can learn. To be protected from our own mistakes in the long run doesn't do us much good. The next question is, what do you believe now that you did not believe earlier that would have helped you in your relationship along the way? On this question, there are two things, really. The first one is that there is no need for things to be exactly as I would like it to be. As a younger man, of course, this was a lesson I had not yet learned. There's simply no need for things to be exactly as I would like them to be. The variances and differences are of little concern. Another answer to this question would be that my spouse and I are very different, and that is a good thing. Earlier in our relationship, we've been together close to 46 years now. Earlier in our relationship, we saw these differences differently, I suppose. We did not appreciate our differences. We sort of felt each other should be like we were. And that's a big mistake. Trying to turn her into me or me into her is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, and it affected us quite a bit. We are growing to know better these days, and I'll leave that for a later question. The next question is, what's been harder about your relationship than what I had expected it to be? What's been difficult? There are three things that come to mind. Communication has been so much more problematic than I thought it would be. And there are various reasons for that, but not all of us are brought together understanding the same things about communication, its purposes, and its need. We come to realize that we have to share of ourselves to communicate properly. And sometimes this sharing is not easy, and that hampers communication. There are things we don't say because we don't know how to, or we fear it may hurt the other person or somehow disturb a balance, and so we don't say it. And that is usually the wrong choice, especially over time. It may work for the moment that you're in, but over time it can never work. This has been harder for both my wife and I. I'm not going to point fingers here or there. That's not what this is designed to do. But we are both understanding that communication is not as simple as we thought it was, primarily because we are emotional creatures and we tend to hide behind or be controlled by those emotions many times. Another thing that's been harder than what I would have expected is basically, again, looking at myself, learning how to have compassion. Compassion is a concept that seems to escape us when we are young and when we're embroiled in becoming who we are, raising a family, establishing a career, making our material mark on the world, so to speak. Compassion seems to take a back seat. Learning how to have compassion is a different way of holding your heart so that things that appear so black and white to you, or good and bad, start to take on more of a gray image that suggests that good and bad are things that we define, and that we can find ourselves in circumstances that could be judged in the same way we are judging others. Compassion is a learned trait, in my opinion, and learning this has been hard for most people. It's hard because it's hard to put ourselves in others' shoes. It's not a natural thing for us to do, but we learn to do that because we all get along better and create better things when we can do that. The third thing that was very difficult, more than I expected, is we have to understand that it is quite natural and normal for two people to grow in different directions, and that this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it always requires adjustments that we may or may not be ready to make when we are holding on to our original expectations. The years will do things to our thinking, to our outlook on the world, to our conclusions and our philosophies, and they will affect each of us differently. The conclusions that we make personally inside of ourselves doesn't have to be the conclusion that another person will make. And when communication is difficult, as it sometimes is, you're not able to align the conclusions and growth that you are doing with the other person, and the growth that they are doing. So growing in different directions or different rates or in different areas may sometimes be a problem as well. The fourth question to answer is, what has been easier about your relationship than you expected? This is opposite from the previous question. This time I'm being asked what is easier about my relationship than I expected it to be. The first thing I can mention here, which is somewhat trivial, is because of the different focuses my wife and I have, my daily maintenance has been very easy for me. She takes care of most things that have to be done on a daily or even weekly basis. So she maintains our cooking, our laundry, and does a bulk of the maintenance around the everyday maintenance around the house. Well, I tend to do special projects for us and around the house. So my daily maintenance would be a lot harder for me if I wasn't in the arrangement that I am with my wife. Another thing that has been much easier than I thought it should be, although this is not a good thing, is how easy it is to fall into bad habits with each other. And this is especially true during the years that we are raising our children. Raising children, going to work every day, making money, putting food on the table, trying to get the better things of life, all this stuff tends to take our focus away from some of the more important stuff in life. And we don't come to realize that until where I am now, after our kids are grown and they're off into the world, and we are left with each other to look at the mistakes we've made during the years in handling each other. It is extremely easy to fall into bad habits with each other. And I thought I would be more aware. I'm not sure what my spouse thinks about this area, but I've always been attentive to the habits I've kept, especially as it relates to people, yet falling to bad habits, both my spouse and I, on both sides of the fence, to watch us fall into habits that minimize who we are as people and reduces us to a set of assumptions in the other person's eyes, that process is way more easier than I thought it should be. So you always have to be on guard for how you hold the other person, your spouse, in your thoughts, and how you label them and how you account for their characteristics. And here goes a question that asks, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to myself on my wedding day? How might I advise me on my own wedding day? This might sound strange, but what I would say to me on my own wedding day is be careful. This person is not as she seems. That may sound a bit negative or definitely needs explanation. I got married very young. I was somewhere, I think, 20 when I got married. And at this point, we are both still forming into the people that we are ultimately going to be. I did not realize that at the time, of course. At 20 years old, you think you're all set in the world, you know everything, there's no one who can tell you anything. But we were both still becoming the person that we'd finally end up being. And, when we listen to other people tell us how to be, when we adhere to other people's expectations, these are not the best conditions under which to find out the person that we ourselves are. Did we get married too young? I've watched people get married when they're young and when they're old, and at this point my suspicion is yes, we were both too young to be making the commitments that we were trying to make at that time. So I don't know what's a good age. It depends on the maturity and thinking of the people involved. But I've seen some good connections, good couples that seem like they have a future, and some couples where I know they don't. So part of my answer indicates that I was basically too young to make the commitment that I was making at the time. And this goes true for my spouse as well. We did not understand that we were only half formed as people ourselves, and that the people that we were to become had not yet entered fully into the picture that we were creating at that time. This question asks, when you think about your relationship, what are you most proud of and why? The thing that I am most proud about when I look back at my marriage is, I believe there was a time 12 years ago when I had my accident that my wife really stepped up to the plate to take care of the issues surrounding my accident. I was out for the count for close to 4 months, and one, she stopped my leg from being amputated. Two, she kept everything together while I was indisposed, and she sort of kind of nursed me back to health. And it's this that I'm most proud of. Of course, there are other things to be proud of as well, but off the top of my mind, this stands out. Her accomplishments in bringing me back to life from that devastating accident stands out as one of the marks of my memories here. The next question is, when you think about your relationship, what do you regret the most and why? The thing I regret the most, I believe, is, I regret that it took me so long to develop into the person that I've become today. We all make mistakes, and we all need to grow and develop, no matter how young or old we are. But, when you have kids and a career, a job you have to go to every day, that doesn't leave a lot of space for the personal growth that you have to do to become a better person or a better version of yourselves. Having kids puts a tremendous stress on a relationship. Oh, they're bundles of joy, all right, and you can very much enjoy playing with them. But what they do to you and your spouse is very often not the thing that you would want. Becoming or having a child turns a woman into a mother and a man into a father. And the difference between woman to mother or even man to father can be very difficult to adjust to inside of a system that has been interacting with itself for 1, 2, or in our case 13 years. So my biggest regret was that I didn't see who I was for so long and could not grow to be the person that I am today. If I had always been the person that I am today, things would have fared out far better. There would have been a lot more memories to share. And the next question asks, what are my thoughts on keeping things fresh over the course of a relationship? The answer to this question depends very heavily on how long the couple has been together. For example, keeping things fresh in a 5-year-old marriage is very different than keeping things fresh in a 35-year-old marriage. These are two different things. But there's a couple things that both of those have in common, despite the different answers that both of those cases would have. In both cases, as long as you are having fun together, then you will be able to keep things fresh. For me, this question equals how much fun are you guys having? Fun equals freshness. As long as you have fun, things will stay fresh. When they start to get stale, you will find that you're not having as much fun, and that's a message to you to freshen things up, to maximize your fun with each other. When the fun stops, staleness creeps in. And the last question asks, if you could ask the people reading this to do one thing, what would that be and why? What one thing would I ask people to do? This is not an easy question because people are of all types and sizes, but there are some critical lessons to be learned on the path of maturing in order to have a really good relationship. Emotional intelligence has to be there. Your willingness to be part of the other person's life, your own priority systems and value systems of things around you have to be in balance in order for a good relationship to happen. A good relationship is it's sort of like a reflection of yourself. But the thing I would ask people to understand more than to do is that there is no problem, issue, circumstance, or condition that you could point to in your spouse where you aren't also involved in the making of this problem, condition, circumstance, or whatever have you. You have to realize that there is a system of communication and a system of interaction that creates whatever problem that you are experiencing. Even if you are the one experiencing the problem, you have some hand in making that problem exist or having that problem exist. And that problem will go away sooner if you find your role in causing that problem. The problems that you see or that your spouses see cannot happen without two people at least being involved. And if there's kids involved, they're probably involved in every problem that you see as well. We all play a role in the problems that we experience. And to understand our role in the problems that we think are coming from our spouse is an important step in communication, in self-maturity, in becoming the person that you know you can be when you are the one controlling your life. Yes, other people will give you problems, but you are part of the problems that other people may give you, and that does include your spouse.